Hi, my name is Mara and welcome to Caraway Books. Now, I did have a video uploaded that was my review of Rumblefish by S.E. Hinton, but the audio, the camera, all of the quality was bad. The camera on here isn't great, but the audio is definitely a lot better. So, this is my official first video. Today I'm going to talk about books I'm currently reading and books I would like to read. Now, I do have some mental and physical health issues that means I get into a reading slump a lot, which means I probably won't read all of these now, but at some point I'd love to read them. So, I have a giant stack here. Now, let's talk about the two books I'm currently reading. I'm not reading them at the same time because I can't do that. But the first one is The Outsiders by S.E. Hinton. I'm reading it with my mom. I never got around to reading it in school. I was in an English class where they were reading it, but I was absent a lot of the time. So I never read it. I never saw the movie until this last year. I listened to the audiobook. I watched the movie that they show in schools, and then I watched the full movie, and I fell in love with it. It's one of my all-time favorite stories. The next book that I'm currently reading is What's Eating Gilbert Grape by Peter Hedges. It's about family, the Grapes. The mom, they never really state her name, but her main characteristics are that she's stubborn, she eats way too much, she's very overweight, all she does is eat, smoke cigarettes, and watch TV, and she loves Arnie. Now, Arnie is the middle child, I guess, and he is mentally retarded, and his big brother Gilbert takes care of him. Now, they have other siblings named Amy and Ellen who are living in the house with them, and then Janice and I think Larry is the oldest brother's name, but I'm not too sure. If you never saw the movie or if you did and you didn't know there was a book, there is. I started this last July. It is now March 26th, I think. Dawn? March 27th. It's March 27th. I started it in July of 2019. I have 50 pages left. I, again, got in a reading slump and quit reading. So, I'm going to finish this one soon and start on another book. So, the next book I want to read is George Orwell's Animal Farm. Now, this book, I don't know too much about it. I know it's anti-government. I know it's banned in schools. It's about farm animals who overtake this farm, and they create this paradise for themselves. That's all I know. And I was reading that off the back. So, yeah. It's banned in schools. I'm sorry the light is so bad. I'll fix it next video. It's banned in schools because it's anti-government. That's all I know. The next book is The Curse of Moose Lake. Now, the author of this, Bethany Hellwig, is a local author. I live in Moose Lake, and if you don't know where that is, it's in the middle of bumfuck nowhere in Minnesota. So it's about a girl named Phoenix and her brother Hawk, who grew up in this underground city in Minnesota where the people there are they're mythical creatures, but they're also monster hunters. So Phoenix and Hawk are monster hunters. Now, I started this book. I did not finish it. From what I read, it's amazing. There's another, this book is the first book in a whole series of Phoenix and Hawk fighting monsters in Minnesota. There's another book series that I never finished, but I'm gonna reread at some point, called The Map Maker, which is based in Duluth, Minnesota, which is where I used to live. So, both local authors, I would check both of them out. You can find Brittany on Goodreads. She's super nice. I met her at our local little fair thing called Art in the Park, where there's music and people sell their art, and she was selling her book series. So it was super nice to talk to her. I got it signed by her. Super nice woman. The next is That Was Then and This Is Now by S.E. Hinton. All I know is this is about two boys named Byron and Mark who are best friends, and one of them gets into some trouble, and they start to realize that they are no longer children. That's all I know, but S.E. Hinton, not a huge fan of who she is personally, but her books are amazing. So the next book is by a YouTuber, and I think her name is Caitlin Doughty. I could be wrong, pronouncing that wrong. I mean, it says it right here. I could be pronouncing that wrong. It's called Will My Cat Eat My Eyeballs? And it's a book of her answering questions that children have asked her about death because she works in the funeral business. I've been watching her channel for a while. I picked this up at a Duluth bookstore called Zenith Books. Great bookstore. It's one of my favorites. So yeah, I'm super excited to read this. I have a horrible fear of death. Not just for myself, but for family members, so maybe this will help, because her whole thing is preaching that you don't have to be afraid of death. Death is a normal thing. You shouldn't be afraid. The next book is Finding Dorothy by Elizabeth Letts. This book is about Maud Gage Baum, L. Frank Baum's wife, finding out they were making his book into a movie, aka The Wizard of Oz. And it's based 19 years after Frank's passing, and she basically meets Judy Garland, takes her on, or she hears Judy rehearsing Over the Rainbow. She talks to her. She takes 16-year-old Judy Garland under her wing, protects her, I've wanted to read this for a while. The Wizard of Oz is also one of my all-time favorite movies. So, I've never actually read the book. I've listened to the audiobook to go to sleep, but I've never read the book, so I'm super excited to read this. The next is a book that I ended up picking up at the dollar store, and it's called Finding Paris. I got it for $1. It's about two sisters, Leo and Paris, and Paris ditches Leo at a motel? No, at the Heartbreak Hotel diner. And Leo runs into somebody named Max, and Max helps Leo find her sister. So, I'm super excited to read that. The next one is one I started reading, didn't finish, gonna reread it, and it is Supermarket by Bobby Hall, aka Logic. Now, people really didn't like this book. They said it was poorly written, which, I mean, I guess, what do you expect from a new author, a rapper, at least, writing a book? But it is about Flynn. They don't state his last name, but he applies for a job at a supermarket, and he arrives to work one day to find a crime scene, and he doesn't really want to go looking for answers, but he ends up looking for answers. And the last line of the description is, "Who knew you could find sex, drugs, and murder all in aisle 9?" So, I love murder mysteries. There was a point in time where I was only reading murder mysteries. I was super excited for this. When people I like release books, it all started with Connor Francis' first book. And I love him. I always want to get them. So, I'm super excited to read this. Started it when I got it. I got it when it first came out. But I read like 10 pages and just quit because reading slumps. The next is what I thought was a biography. It's not. It's fiction. Well, I guess it's fiction mixed with fact. And it's Alex and Eliza. It's the first book in a trilogy, and the other two are Love and War and All for One. It is about Alexander Hamilton and Eliza Schuyler and how they fell in love and met. You know, I do think it's fiction, though. I was on a plane to Montana, and I had picked this up in the airport along with another book about Marilyn Monroe, but that's not on this list. Anyways, I read part of it on the plane. I don't think I was in the right setting for it to hook me in, but it was okay. I'm not gonna say it was great because I didn't read too much, but it was okay. I wasn't expecting it to be fiction. I think that was my issue. The next book is The Great Gatsby by F. Scott Fitzgerald. Now, I am from the state F. Scott Fitzgerald is from. He was born 2 hours away from where I live, or 3 hours away from where I was born. So yeah, I want to read this partly for that reason, but also because The Great Gatsby is one of my favorite movies. I listened to part of the audiobook. I tried to read it before I watched the movie, but I didn't get it because 1920s literature is hard to read if you don't have context. But then I had context. So I tried to read it again, got into a reading slump, quit. But now I know all the context because of how many times I've seen that movie and listened to part of the audiobook. So I want to pick it up. And I got this beautiful version of it because, I'm just gonna lean over here, this version, it was the first version I ever bought, and this is the classic version, and this was bought at a thrift store, so obviously it was used, but like I had to tape it, and it's like falling apart. It's just in bad shape, but this is, I'll probably frame it at some point. Yeah, I'm a nerd with books. I have 4 copies of The Outsiders because this is my favorite book. The next book is Let Me Hear a Rhyme by Tiffany D. Jackson. Now this is about 3 friends. Let me find their names. Quadir, Jarrell, and Steph. And Steph had been murdered, and his 2 friends found his music and released it. But no one knows he's dead. So they have to find a way to work through all these people who want new music but don't know this kid had been murdered. And that's all I really know. But I was super excited to pick this up. I obviously, as you can see from my list of books, don't read a lot of books with diversity. So I was super excited to read this because I want to include more diversity into my reading. I also picked this one up the same day I picked up Will My Cat Eat My Eyeballs at the Zenith bookstore in Duluth, Minnesota. So I'm super excited to read this. I love the cover. The story just sounds amazing. I'll probably cry while reading it. So yeah, super excited to read this. And last but not least, I mean, I have other books, but these are my main ones. Last but not least is, and I'm partially, as you can see, partially into it. It's very short, and it's Did I Ever Wake Up by Modson, aka Derek Smith. Now, if you don't know who Modson is, he is a rapper from Minnesota. He's a huge hippie, and his music isn't for everyone, but it's definitely for me. He, at the end of, we're gonna get a little dark here, by the way. At the end of 2018, his music, along with 2 other musicians, Machine Gun Kelly and Palais Royale, saved my fucking life. Like, just completely and utterly. And at the end of his album, Look Up, he has 5 songs. And they are the audiobook to this book. And listen to that. It helped me through a lot. Well, March 1st, I had the chance to go to his concert. My mom ended up buying me every single one of his books. I was able to meet him. Now, I told him he has a tattoo on his stomach, just his whole stomach, and it just says, "Happy to be here." Well, I told him on my shoulder, right here, I wanted to get "Happy to be here" written in his handwriting. So, he wrote "Happy to be here," signed my book. This book will forever mean something to me, and I want to read it as many times as I can, because Madsen is one of the smartest people I can think of his generation, and that I will ever have the opportunity to meet. So, I really want to read this book. I also have his poetry books that I will also be reading, but this one is the main one. So, thank you for watching. My name is Mara. Like, subscribe, do all that good stuff. And thank you for watching.